statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. It's game week. And I don't even need this chair because I will float suspended in air. I'm so happy. It is Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Great to be with you on this Monday afternoon. Hope you are having a fantastic day. Thanks for spending some time with us on your radios, on your televisions, on your applications, and various electronic things. We thank you for that. We are happy to be with you. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us online as well, 1029ESPN.com. Listen Live tab that allows you to listen live. Imagine that. All the time. The stream brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. If you'd like to call, please feel free. 329-1899. Area code 406-329-1899. The phone number. All guests join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. Outstanding to have you along for what is Christmas week to me. I am very, very excited to be on board for the 26th through the 31st of August and beyond as we head straight downhill into two Montana State and Montana football games to open the season. College football got started in a very fun way on Saturday, actually, with the Miami-Florida game, and then all of the surprise that happened in an 11.5-point home underdog in Hawaii, holding off Arizona on the last play of the game to win that one. Youngstown State hammering Samford at the FCS level. Another game's going on, but this is the first real week of it. But we'll get into that stuff throughout the week. Right here and right now, it's the Montana Football Hour, which we do every Monday, the first hour of every show, every week. The Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. And we have a bunch of stuff, the first official weekly press conferences, heading in game week press conferences for both Montana State and Montana. We will hear from both head coaches, and we will also hear a little bit from Sammy Akem of the University of Montana. Montana State does not bring players to this press conference. The University of Montana does. Sammy Akem present today for the Grizzlies, so we'll hear a little bit from him as well. But Colter, just set the scene. Oh, by the way, next hour we will get into Andrew Luck. I realize this is the major topic that everybody. I mean, it's a stunner. It was a shocking revelation that took place on Saturday evening, and sort of the way that all came about. Adam Schefter's like a little too good at his job, evidently. And so we'll get into that, and Dwight Howard signing for $0. That's right, zero goose egg with the Los Angeles Lakers, which Colter is getting a big kick out of. So we'll get into all that stuff. But right here, right now, we focus on the state of Montana, on Montana State, and on the University of Montana, and get into the Montana Football Hour. Colter, the University of Montana heading to Vermillion to play South Dakota, and then Montana State, of course, to Lubbock, Texas, which, as I am understanding it, is actually on the surface of the sun.
109 degrees right now in Lubbock.
No, thank you. I mean, I'm just not going to do the weather thing, okay? I think it's too low-hanging fruit. Although it is impactful for this game, which we will talk about in the context of this game, that is an enormous number to have as your Fahrenheit temperature. Be more enormous, I guess, if it was centigrade, now that I consider it. But in any case, if you are sitting here and it's this week, tell me the mindset that you would have for these two teams looking at these two games, because I think you approach these games very differently because of the opponent, in terms of who you're playing and what you want to get out of this.
College football is like no other sport in the fact that you play against yourselves. The majority of the time that you are playing football in college, you only get, if you have the greatest career ever, 60 chances to perform against other people. Whereas you are playing or training with and against yourself, both personally and as a team, for 9 out of the 12 months a year.
Yeah.
So the offseason is so paramount because only one team at the FBS level, only one team at the FCS level ends their season with a sweet taste in their mouths. Everybody else has a bitter taste in their mouths. It doesn't matter if you go 0-11 or you lose in the semifinals or you lose in the national championship game. Every single team in the country besides North Dakota State for the last decade has been able to go into the offseason saying, we have motivation. We got to get better than NDSU. We have to figure out how to be better than we were last year.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a very interesting dynamic when we talk about the opener, because the opener has so much preparation. I mean, the chances are you know who you're playing the first game of the season, January 1. So as a coaching staff and even as players individually, you can start preparing so early on. And then you get into the routine of a season where it's a week-long turnaround, and it's just so much different compared to what the opening game is. And I do think there's a distinct element of playing a powerhouse in your opening game. Nick Saban has always said, you might tell me that my non-conference, Alabama's been famous for playing Gardner-Webb or the Citadel or whatever the week before the Iron Bowl.
Yeah.
But like Nick Saban says, you can kill me for that all you want. I'm going to play Florida State the first game of the year every year. I'm going to play whoever it might be, a Power 5 non-conference opponent.
Yeah.
Because I know that will be in my guys' minds for 9 months. It will drive our training. It will drive our camps, everything. And I think that Montana State has had that a little bit with Texas Tech. Now, I think that Montana State is facing a massive uphill battle. I know there's a new coaching staff at Texas Tech. I know the Cats have a lot more talent than they have had in the last 4 years. It's Texas Tech. I mean, they got dudes that you just can't guard if you're the Cats. But then on the other hand, though, I do think Montana State has several FBS caliber guys that played in the FBS that can help kind of, and those guys are seniors, they're leaders. They can sort of calm the nerves of everybody else. So we'll see. But then on the Montana side of things, I think that the bitter taste, I mean, everybody has a bitter taste when your season ends. But to have it end the way that Montana's season ended, it couldn't be more bitter. And just in the moment, in that just singular example, it couldn't be more bitter. Then you factor in it happened under Bobby Hauck. Then you factor in the success that Bobby Hauck experienced his first tenure at Montana. And then you factor in the tradition of Montana in the modern era. And it's just unfathomable to think that the Grizz would miss the playoffs for the third straight time by fumbling on their own goal line against Montana State. It's perfect theater. And then you think, okay, so how does that motivate you, though? And if you believe everything that's come out of Montana's camp, it motivated the Grizz an inquantifiable amount, an unbelievable amount. And I think that, Bobby Hauck doesn't give you a lot when you're interviewing him and you're talking the press conferences, and you'll hear some of the shortness in these quotes. But like I said last year, the one thing is, as media members and as people just in society, when you're talking about listening to commentary and listening to sports commentary, I think we always think, well, man, how can I read between the lines on this? What else is he really trying to say? And honestly, Bobby Hauck told the public and Grizz Nation and whoever you want to say, whoever's listening to him, he told you exactly last season. He did not pull any punches in the analysis of his roster, the strengths, the weaknesses, what was missing from the program. So then that's why I think it's very intriguing. And you said this on the show about 2 weeks ago. You said you were talking about Coach Hauck's confidence and how that might be able to affect the rest of the Montana Grizzlies. And that's the thing about Hauck. He's unquestionably, unwaveringly confident. But when he really looks at you and answers your question, over and over again, he goes back to the same talking points. He's not trying to talk about anything else but this team. But the one thing he has said consistently since the first day of fall camp, he says, I am so excited to watch this team play. I don't know what we're going to be, but I'm excited to watch this team play because I think we could be really good. And I think that's the attitude you take if you're Montana. Just the 9 months of culmination, it comes to a head in Vermilion on Saturday. So I think it's two distinctly different mentalities that you enter these games with, despite having two huge openers for the Montana schools.
Both schools, both head football coaches held press conferences today. We have sound from both of them, so we will start here in the first segment with the University of Montana and Bobby Hauck. This is his opening remark, followed by a couple of questions to start the press conference.
Well, we're excited to be into the season. I think that our players would agree it's been a pretty arduous offseason. They've worked really hard, and we're at that juncture where they want to play somebody else. So I think the last 8+ months have been really productive for our team, and I'm, it's Monday, but I'm excited to watch them play this weekend, and I think we have a great test on the road. We'll see how we perform, but all indicators are that our guys are ready to go.
Coach Nielsen's in his 4th year now at South Dakota. How have you crossed paths with him before, and what marks his teams in general? What do they do well?
Well, Coach Nielsen does a great job. First and foremost, he's a good man. He's a solid person, and he runs his team the way it should be run. As he's worked his way up through the ranks, he's had great success. He's always done it the right way, and I don't know him as well as I do some of my close friends, but I have a lot of respect for him and know him well enough to know how he operates, and he just does a great job. And they'll be solid on the field, offense, defense, special teams, and they'll be coached right. And he just runs a really fine, well-run, well-oiled, the program that's got great structure and great base for all the players.
You guys have put in so much work, 9 months worth to get to this point. How do you help the guys kind of ease the nerves early on? And what about first games makes them interesting to you?
Well, you don't know. I don't think you know your team till they play some. And so, as I mentioned a minute ago, I'm excited to watch our guys play. I really have a high regard for the people on our team, just as individuals, and how much they enjoy playing for and with each other. So just kind of excited to see them play. And as I responded to the earlier question, we need to go execute our plays in all 3 phases. And if we do that, we'll have a chance to win.
Sometimes in the first game, it could be playing up or maybe playing down, but this is a like opponent and part of the Missouri Valley Big Sky Challenge. Does that add an element to a first game of the season?
I don't know. They're all big to us. Doesn't really matter who you play. Being on the road probably is different around here, I guess, in the last few years. They've been all home games. But, they're a quality opponent, and that's kind of where it starts and ends for us.
The party line for Bobby Hauck and the University of Montana when it comes to football is every single week is the biggest game of your life. There is no such thing as a big game or a bigger game or a small game or a smaller game. They're all the biggest game. And so regardless of whether you are playing a game which you are certain to lose at Penn State or a game that you are certain to win at Washington Grizzly Stadium against, take your pick, Southeast Missouri, there is just no consequence. I could have picked a worse team.
I mean, Southeast Missouri's like number 13 in the country. I knew where you were going. You could have said like Oklahoma Panhandle State or something. Southeast Missouri used to be a joke, but SEMO's actually really good now. I mean, they're a playoff team last year. Anyways, I know what you're saying.
Point being, none of this stuff matters. And so, but here's the thing. We saw the University of Montana football team under Bob Stitt play at incredibly high levels and play at incredibly low levels. And there was a giant roller coaster, both in terms of execution and, frankly, effort, that the University of Montana had and didn't have game in and game out.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's great when it's there, but it's unacceptable when it isn't there. And in an attempt to make it all even, you come in and you do that. And by the way, I'm not saying that this is a reaction to that out of Bobby Hauck. I think this is consistent with the history of Bobby Hauck, the football coach. But the reality is that everybody looking at this, you can look at every single game and see things that are of note in those games and things that are different about those games and things that make certain games, frankly, more important than other games. Even though they're all for one win or one loss on the schedule, there are games that mean more. That, if you're going to tell me that playing against Monmouth at home, in the non-conference is the same thing as playing against Montana State, and the last game of the season, well, that's just a lie. It's just not true. And by the way, I'm not insinuating that anybody's even suggesting that, but you understand what I'm saying when you want to have something like this perfect equity so that every single game you are, bang, this is what we're doing today, this is what we're doing tomorrow, this is what we're doing the next day. Now we go play, and we play with everything every single time. I understand and appreciate that, but also when it comes time to ask questions about, okay, well, what's it like to be playing a Missouri Valley opponent in the first week? The answer is, well, nothing. It's not like anything. It's or maybe better said, it's just like everything. They're our first game. We can't wait to play. Don't care where, don't care when, don't care who, don't care how. Let's just go play football. And, okay. So it's up to us, I guess, to flesh out the importance of this game, which we have talked about before, crucial for the University of Montana. It's crucial for the Big Sky Conference, quite frankly, in the Missouri Valley Big Sky Challenge, and it's certainly significant to the University of Montana when this feels like it's certainly the one game that is the most coin flippy of their non-conference, okay? We anticipate fully the next 3 weeks for the University of Montana that they are 2-1. Then they go on the road to UC Davis, and that is a just brutal, maybe great way. Who knows? I don't know. It's a very difficult way to open up your conference schedule. This game right here in Vermilion on Saturday is huge for the first month of the season and consequently for the rest of the season. And I'm not saying you shouldn't treat it or try to treat it just like any other game, but the fact of the matter is it ain't any other game, and it ain't any other opener.
Former Eastern Washington head coach Bo Baldwin had a great line. He used to always say, half the teams in the country lose every weekend. The margin of error and the margin between victory and defeat in college football is so slim. I mean, how many teams, and you see it at the FCS level even more prevalently because I think that there's just a lot more parity, but how many teams have we seen that are so good that just can't break through? I mean, you're just a 5-6 team. The Grizz were a good team last year, and they went 6-5. The Montana State was a great team in 2015. They went 5-6. They had giant flaws, no doubt. But I think that the point is that the only way that the games that are big games on paper are big when you get to them on your schedule is if you win all the other ones. Eastern Washington at Montana is going to be a big game forever because of the regional rivalry, the way that the history between the schools in the modern era, all that stuff. But if you lose to teams you're not supposed to, like how much bigger would the UC Davis game have been last year for the Grizz here in Missoula? A ranked Davis team coming to Missoula for the first time as a Big Sky Conference member, or the first time at least in the Bobby Houck era, if Montana doesn't lose to Portland State.
Right.
You have to treat every game like the biggest game because guess what? It's a way bigger deal for the repercussions of your season if you lose to Portland State than if you beat Eastern Washington.
I understand that, and that's all well and good, but when it comes then to the talking points,
right.
Discussion,
trust me,
it's
the talking points. We should just give up now. I mean, what we saw today, it's a tactic. I get it. Bobby Houck wants to make a no-star system. He wants to have no bulletin board material available for anybody. They're not answering any questions.
Yeah.
Like they're not gonna tell you anything that you would maybe want to know. So that's here nor there. We're not here to discuss that. Maybe that's a discussion for a later point in time. But I do think that the regimented B1, Bobby Houck's theory, what he's doing here, this tactic, is not that dissimilar to what Dan Hawkins is doing at UC Davis. It's just a lot different in the messaging and the articulation of it. Dan Hawkins says, let's be 1% better than we were yesterday today. And at the end of the day, we might not win any games, but we don't care because we're going to be the best version of ourselves and the best version as a team. And guess what? If you're the best version of yourself and the best version of your team, you're likely are going to win 10 games again like UC Davis did last year. It's just like if you treat every single day the same and you do not treat anything bigger than anything else. That was the brilliance of Coach Houck's teams the first time around. It's not as if you treat every day like it's a normal day. It's that you treat every day like it's the last day.
Well,
that's the key. That's where Montana needs to get back to.
And let's hear from Sammy Akem right on this point because, again, Sammy Akem, he talked for about 5 minutes, but you're going to hear everything he said in the next 40 seconds because it was a lot of, rinse and repeat, the talking points. But I think there is something interesting in here as it pertains to that very thing. There we go, Sammy Akem at the press conference today.
How much are you looking forward to playing somebody else?
I think we're all looking forward to playing somebody else, but we still got a couple days of work to put in before we get to that point, so it's just one day at a time, stacking the bricks until Saturday comes.
Sammy, you guys as a wide receiving group are very, very talented and also very diverse in your skill sets. Do you think that adds an advantage to going against a defense that you really don't know what they're going to bring, but it seems like maybe you might have an answer in a variety of ways for whatever comes along?
I mean, I think it does play in our advantage, but I mean, just like Coach said, we don't really know. So, I mean, it's going to be in-game adjustments, and I think experience will play a part in that. But, I mean, we got to work hard, and nothing's going to be given to us. So, just got to be ready for anything.
So we'll come back to the second part of that. I was going to play some stuff about this actual football game that Bobby Hauck had to say regarding, their opponent and defensive coordinator. But initially, Sean Rainey asked the question, are you excited to play against somebody else? Which, of course, you're excited, and he said as much. He admitted to that. But then he very quickly said, but we still have a few days before that happens. Like, you get to Monday, and I imagine that you're like me. It's like, finally, it's here. It's time. Let's go. To hear Sammy Akem say it's a long ways out. We're a long ways away from Saturday. We're a long ways away from the game. We got a bunch of days of work between now and then, and I think that is that's an impressive perspective to have instilled from the head coach and the coaching staff onto your team, where you get finally to the week that you have been working all this time. And you asked the question, you've been working 9 months to get here to this time, and you go, okay, you're finally here. And they go, well, no, we're not. We're not here. It's Monday. We got work to do on Monday. Tomorrow will be Tuesday. There'll be work to do on Tuesday, and so on. And then eventually it'll be Saturday, and there'll be work to do Saturday morning, and then work to do it Saturday at noon, and then we'll kick it off, and then it will be very exciting. Like, that is, how much you buy into that, how much you believe that, I don't know. But certainly that is the way that they are approaching this. And like you said, every day is not the first day. Every day is the last day. The last day. So presumably, at least audibly, attitudinally, if I may say, that is how this stuff is coming across. And it has certainly been impressed into this team by this coaching staff that way.
And here's the thing, there's all these tactics out there, and I think that there's different levels of efficacy of all these tactics. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you can act however you want if you win.
Yeah,
and I think that there's also is a chance to pound your own chest and tell people how great you are and show all these proclamations of what's going to happen next, both as a team and as individuals. Just in the world at large, but it's particularly in college football. Social media, Twitter dominates college football. You got to have the Twitter department basically now at your school for graphic designs. You need to get the kids mocked up in their jerseys. Everybody's getting their custom graphics. Who's got the coolest graphics? They're talking about FCS recruits, and you got dudes that have 10. Think that there is a certain element, because some of this stuff, the way that Montana deals with interacting with the media, some of it drives me crazy. It does. It drives me crazy. But when I look at it objectively, when I sit here and talk it out on the show, I think of the parts about what I get, what they're doing. And you can say #RTD. You can say return to dominance. And it's not as if Montana's completely absent of that. Montana's doing all sorts of video work. Riley Corcoran's had some great interviews with the players and coaches, etc. Montana does the graphics. Montana does all this stuff. Everybody does it. You have to do it. There's no program that doesn't do it. But if you Montana State's slogan all season was never again. #never again. We're never going to get beat again like we did at North Dakota State. Never again. Eastern Washington's all offseason was elevate the standard. If the standard is the Final Four, the standard is the Big Sky Champs, the standard is the national championship game, we have to win the national championship game now. Elevate the standard. But I think that although the #RTD thing is a giant bullseye on Montana's back, has been since the day that they constructed that campaign, other than that, Montana's been trying to walk softly and carry a big stick. And if they return to where they once were without all the proclamations of where they're going to go, like almost every other program in the country has, it will resonate big time. It will. It will resonate big time with me, especially.
Well, here's the thing. Aside from football and being a football coach from a football standpoint, Bobby Hauck's greatest gift as a coach is one-on-one. when he is talking to, whether it's the boosters, whether it's the parents, whether it's us even, mic's off, he is fabulous, right? He's great to talk to, engaging, funny, all that stuff, and yes, very confident, okay? So he has all that stuff. But I believe this completely. Bobby Hauck could give one rip about projecting the program or even the university in some particular way. And He's here to win football games. That's it. That's all.
Totally.
Don't talk to me about anything else.
Totally. 100% agree with you, except for the most interesting part to me is that last season was Bobby Hauck's 12th year as a head football coach in college football. And it was the first year he really ever had to experience what he experienced. He had some losing years at UNLV, but that was under the premise of a completely downtrodden football program that you're trying to rebuild, and you are taking the steps to rebuild it, and then they took incremental steps and made a bowl game. And so the process was there to have a program that was, I say this all the time, but it's unfathomable to think that the Grizz are where they are right now, considering where they were such a recent time ago. They were so good not long ago. And Bobby Hauck was a part of that, but he also was only a part of it. It's not as if he built that from the ground up. And that's not to discredit Coach Hauck. I think he was the absolute perfect coach for the Grizz at that time. And the Big Sky got more teams in the league trying to make a better effort at football and trying to catch Montana coincided with Bobby Hauck's first tenure in the league. Eastern Washington took the next step as a program. Montana State was just a middle-of-the-road program for the entire 1990s. They hire Mike Kramer. Now, all of a sudden, they are a competitor. They can at least hang with Montana. Ron McBride's Weber State teams. That was a fantastic finish to a legendary career for Ron McBride, to go out at Weber State and have back-to-back playoff years. So it's not to discredit what Coach Hauck did at all. But what I'm so interested in is the way that he operates and all the things he wants. Again, you're right. He doesn't give a rip about any of that. The program recruits itself if the program is what it should be. Exactly. And that's what they have to get back to if they want all of this stuff to work. Right. And if they do, it's rolling.
That's right.
That's my biggest question mark, though. Can they get back to where they once were?
The proof, and this is exactly how Bobby Hauck wants it, the proof is in the pudding.
Mm-hmm.
Period. End of story. The question is how good is the pudding, And that's it, because the proof will be there, good or bad. But he's certainly not going to sit up there and paint a grandiose picture for you about anything. You have to watch and decide for yourself if you're in, if you're out, if you like it, if you don't like it, whatever. We'll take a break. Talk about Montana here in this first segment. We're going to come back, do Montana State. Jeff Choate, he goes the other way on this stuff. He will paint all the pictures and give you his vision in a completely unabridged form. And we got a bunch of sound from him to get to as they look down the week at Texas Tech in Lubbock. The Montana State Bobcats opening at the Big 12 on Saturday. It is the Montana Football Hour, the first hour of every show, right here on Tutel and Nuanez on every Monday show. Tutel and Nuanez, Montana State, and even high school, Frontier Conference, all the football across the state of Montana, first hour. And it is finally football week. We're happy about it. It is presented by Lithia Ford. Hurry up and save with Lithia Ford of Missoula. Save an estimated 20% off the new 2019 Ford F-150. Plus, earn complimentary maintenance through Ford Pass Rewards. The Ford F-150 features best-in-class capability for work or play. This makes tough tasks look easy, whether you're working on the job or heading out on a weekend of recreation. The good deals don't stop there. You can also save an estimated 20% on the 2019 Ford Edge, Escape, or Exhibition. It's the Hurry Up and Save sales event with Lithia Ford of Missoula. These great deals won't last long, so be sure to drive away in your new Ford before September 3rd. Montana State next. Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hello, Missoula. Ryan Tutel here from Tutel and Nuanez. At the beginning of 2019, Coulter came up with a new idea that has already grown into one of our most broad, in-depth, and successful segments. The ESPN Roundtable has been a highlight of the year for us so far.
From the standout seniors from the University of Montana men's Big Sky Conference Championship basketball team to NFL players with Montana ties, to Grizz head coach Bobby Hauck to Montana State Athletic Director Leon Costello, we've covered a wide swath with these weekly long-form interviews.
Heck, we even had a real Irishman in the studio. Standout Grizz men's tennis player Oisin Shaffrey was certainly one of our most entertaining subjects.
As we enter the summer months, we're going to keep the ESPN Roundtable rolling with a collection of premier guests.
So check out the ESPN Roundtable. The 30-minute segment airs at noon each Wednesday on Tutel and Nuanez at 5 p.m. on 102.9 ESPN Missoula and SWX Television every Thursday, and forevermore as part of the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series at SkylineSportsMT.com.
The ESPN Roundtable, presented by Paradise Falls, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. The Missoula Osprey won 3 straight games Friday and Saturday before dropping a doubleheader on Sunday to cap an unprecedented stretch away from the Garden City. Because of field damage dating back to the Mumford & Sons concert on August 11th, the O's have played now 18 consecutive games on the road. Missoula lost 4-2 and 10-1 on Sunday in that doubleheader. They're now 15-12 in the second half and 5 games back of the Billings Mustangs with 2 weeks to play. Missoula will be back in Missoula for the first time in quite a while tomorrow night, facing the Billings Mustangs for a 3-game set beginning Tuesday.
High school and college football get underway around the state and around the country this week. At the prep level, Missoula Sentinel will try to bounce back from a 2018 season filled with narrow, disappointing losses, while Missoula Big Sky will look to return to the playoffs after a 1-year absence. Hellgate snapped a historic losing streak last season and returns many contributors, including star quarterback/safety Raleigh Wooster. Billings West, the defending Class AA champions.
In small school prep football, the Flint Creek Titans will look to become the first Class C 8-man team since Drummond from 2003 to 2005 to win 3 straight titles. Was there a good football player on that Drummond team in those 3 state championships? I'm trying to remember. Billings Central also looking for a second Class A title.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Smack dab in the middle of the Montana Football Hour, the first hour of every show every Monday, all football season. covering all things, well, football in the state of Montana. We try and keep it simple, right, Coulter? The Montana Football Hour.
Yes, sir.
It's not about basketball in Kansas, people. You know? Sutel Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on Twitter at Gus Tutel, that's me, at 1029 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT as well for all your breaking and up to the moment Big Sky Conference sports information. It's like following Adam Schefter, but for the Big Sky, at Skyline Sports MT. Coulter, as we continue in the Lithia Ford Montana Football Hour, we spent a lot of time. We spent the whole first segment basically on the University of Montana, on the Grizzlies. It's time now to jump over the hill and talk about Montana State and the Bobcats, who face Texas Tech out of the Big 12 on Saturday. And to me, I would prefer, if I was a coach, even a player or whatever, to be playing an opponent like Texas Tech in game one, as opposed to, first of all, as opposed to any other game, game 3 or whatever, but also as opposed to a team like South Dakota in game 1. If anybody watched the Miami-Florida football game on Saturday, first games are weird, man. They're just weird. They just are. The tackling was atrocious.
Atrocious.
The turnovers.
How about the defense? How about the defensive backs? Just flail all over the place. How many pass interference calls are there? 20.
Just and turnovers and everything. And look, Florida was clearly the better team. I thought Miami did a very nice job, especially the first time head coach there coaching his first game and so forth. I thought they were good. Florida's better than Miami is, clearly. They're more than 4 points better than Miami is. It turned out to be a 4-point game and an absolute dogfight. And all you care about in the first game is just give me a W. I don't care how, I don't care what it looks like, I don't care about anything. Just let me win the doggone football game because they are weird. With that in mind, a game against a like opponent that turns out to be a really big game for your schedule is even more, if I may say, coin flippy in a game one than it would be in another game. Whereas this game now for Montana State, they get to go, they get to have their redshirt freshman quarterback make his first ever start in what will probably be the toughest place he'll ever play, and the toughest conditions he might ever play, and certainly from a heat standpoint. And you play a game that you have no pressure on you to win or anything else. Certainly you should have some pressure on you to go out and play at a high level, go out and perform. You don't want to walk out onto the stage that you're going to have and lay an absolute egg, and Coach Choate in his press conference talked about, it's an opportunity for the brand to represent itself on a national stage, and there's pride in that for any small school team that steps up in the division, certainly to the Power 5, to go out there and not simply be. I mean, it matters to not go out there and lose 70-7. You know what I mean? It does. You want it to be a competitive, at least, kind of football game. But Montana State has the opportunity now to go to Texas Tech. When you think about them opening in Lubbock, Coulter, what comes to your mind, and what do you think what would you be looking to get out of this game if you were Jeff Choate, aside from healthy?
Pray that the lightning storm in Lubbock hits and you get the check and don't have to play it down.
Oh, for crying out loud.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. I was looking at the Doppler. The storm is going to hit right when the game's supposed to kick off. So it's going to be it could be a total weather influenced game in a completely different way than they thought. When there was projecting a month out what the temperature was going to be like for this game, it was supposed to be 104 degrees, which means it's about 120 on the turf. Mm-hmm. And Matt Wells made the comment during one of his fall camp press conferences. He said, it's going to be 170 on the turf, and we don't know if those Montana boys are going to be able to react to that. And then Choate must have listened to it, because then he went on a rant and fired back and said, if it's really 170 degrees on the turf, and I stick my thermometer in the turf, and it says 170, I ain't playing. We're not playing. So gamesmanship on both sides regardless. But 109 in Lubbock today. But the high, the last I checked, in Lubbock on Saturday was 89 degrees. But a thunder and lightning storm is supposed to hit the area right around kick.
Okay.
And so, you never know what's going to happen. But to answer your question, what does Montana State want to get out of this game? I think that sometimes when you play an FBS team, especially if you get overwhelmed, and you get behind the 8 ball pretty early on, it's natural to try to pull out all the stops. But then all of a sudden, okay, like Weber State against Utah the other, I guess it was 2 years ago. Landon Stice returns a fumble for a touchdown. You're up 7-0. Now all of a sudden you start running all your crazy stuff, and then you get 41 yards the whole rest of the game and just get absolutely hammered. Mm-hmm. And then you worry, okay, what did we show on film? We lost 41-7, but also we showed all our formations on film, so then you dial it back. There's just a lot of different ways to manage it. The thing I think the Cats have is the fact that they have a redshirt freshman making his first career start in what is sure to be a hostile environment. I think that then gives them, ironically, the ability to run all the crazy stuff they do run on offense and not show any of the new stuff, because the conventional stuff is the new stuff for Montana State. 7-step drop, throw the ball down the field. That's new. No one's seen that under Jeff Choate. Well, and so I think if you run a lot of these different quarterback stuff, I think there's a worry about showing all that stuff too early most of the time in your openers. In this game, show it all, because then it means that Casey Bauman's not on the field for 50, 60 snaps. That's less hits. It's less nerves, all that stuff.
It's interesting to try and think about how a coach in a position that Jeff Choate is in approaches a game like this. Well, he took pains to set the table to make sure you understand out there, you Montana State fans, exactly what the level is, what the difference is between a team like Texas Tech and a program like Texas Tech and that at Montana State.
Certainly the challenges that a place like Lubbock present. It's a long trip. It's about a 2-hour and 40-minute flight. And so, that's a little bit different for us. A lot of times regionally, we don't have to travel quite as far, although this year's kind of the exception. Certainly when you're playing a university that has 21,000 more undergrads than the university that you are coaching at, they've got about $70 million more in their athletic budget than we have here at Montana State. I would be the lowest paid coach on their staff on base salary by about $40,000. And so that gives you maybe a little bit of perspective. There's going to be 43,000 more people in the stands than if we had a sellout here at Montana State, and they got 22 more scholarships.
Cornerbacks coach for $50,000 more than being a head coach. Take that deal.
And that's not even the craziest disparity. If you want to really just understand the level of money that exists in the SEC or the Big Ten, go look at the budgets for some schools.
Oh, yeah.
Like I can't remember why this happened, but somebody forwarded me Tennessee's athletic budget one time. Tennessee's assistant strength coach makes more money than either head coach in Montana.
Yeah, no doubt. It is what it is, and that's part of the deal. But I think an interesting, approach to go, let's just be very clear about what it is. And you're never going to say as a head coach, hey, we don't expect to win, or, we're just going to deal with the fact that we're going to take our lumps and stuff like that. But you also, only the most optimistic, I would think, of Montana State fans are sitting here going, hey, game one, anything could happen. Let's do, But at the same time, I think a lot of fans don't have a really sober, necessarily understanding of just exactly what we're talking about when you talk about, 22 scholarships. You know what that is? Every starter.
No doubt.
And millions of dollars in facilities and preparation, all of this stuff. So it obviously matters. And it's a Texas-based team, by the way, if you're wondering.
What is the hardest position to recruit at the FCS level, especially out west in the Big Sky Conference?
Probably quarterback.
Cornerback.
Yeah, because of the length and the speed that you can't find.
Right, and you're only one level away from being out offered by somebody that the kid's going to pick almost every time. Like if you got a kid on the line from Tacoma and he's like a 3-star dude who could be a 4-year starter for you, as soon as Washington State comes in, it's out. He's out. And so it's so hard to recruit that position, regardless of what Texas Tech does on offense. Because Matt Wells, Utah State averaged 47.5 points per game last year, but they rushed the ball for about 210 yards per game. That's a far cry from what Texas Tech's been running on offense for the last 20 years. And while that's one thing that maybe gets overshadowed a little bit is the air raid actually does include a lot of interior zone stuff. The best air raid teams, like Washington State rushes for about 150 yards a game. when they're operating at their best. They're just throwing for another 350. I mean, that's the Mike Leach formula. 350 through the air, 150 on the ground. But Texas Tech only ran for about 115, 120 yards last year per game. So regardless of what, though, Matt Wells implements, this is the first year in the last 20 that they haven't had a straight air raid guy as their head coach. So what does that mean? What do they got? 20 ridiculous receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, this TJ Vasher kid, this kid had, I think, 4 Power 5 offers to play basketball, let alone offers from Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma to play football. And he picked Texas Tech because he's from Wichita Falls, right by Lubbock. But the kid's 6'6", 215. He's going to be starting in the NFL in 2 years.
Yeah.
No doubt. And so that's where I think that, regardless of what you think of this matchup, I do think Montana State will be able to hang on the lines better than what most FCS teams can hang in the trenches with an FBS, a Power 5. But I just think that there's going to be Texas Tech's 16th receiver is going to have an advantage on the perimeter against Montana State's starting corners.
Quickly, Coulter, just quickly, though. Texas State, you familiar with those Bobcats? They play at Texas A&M. They're a 36-point underdog, 35-point underdog.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech in the same dang conference as Clemson, albeit Clemson's the best team in the country, 36-point underdog there. Would you like to take a stab at the line on this Montana State-Texas Tech game? Do you know what it is?
The Montana State-Texas Tech, it was 21.5 when it opened.
Well, it's at 25 now.
Okay.
That's pretty respectable, seems to me, when you talk about an FCS opponent playing at a Power 5 school, 25 points. One thing that is certainly everybody's going to have their eyes on, no matter what, certainly in an atmosphere like this, is Casey Bauman. Casey Bauman making his first ever start. He's going to have his first truly meaningful snaps in a college football game. And guess what? It's going to be in the heat and the atmosphere of a Big 12 football game. So here you go with Coach Choate asked about, his expectations for Casey Bauman making his first start.
Yeah, I think poise is the thing I want to see. But I mean, the reality is he's going to be nervous, and he should be. I mean, for me to stand up here and say, oh, this guy's going to be calm, cool, collected, ice water in his vein. No, come on. I mean, that's human nature. And so what we got to do is we got to get him hit a couple times, and, he's got to kind of shake it off and go play. And he will. I mean, the worst time for him is going to be from the time that we get off the field in warm-ups until he takes his first snap. That's going to seem like an eternity. And so, but that's part of growing up, I mean, I think about where you want. Hey, you got a young quarterback who's making his first collegiate start, and he's doing it in that atmosphere. Everything after this is going to seem a little easier.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that part of it. The thing that I'm interested in is all of the talk that kind of came out of the second scrimmage that Montana State played and Casey Bauman playing in that scrimmage was, it was pretty clear, and not just Casey Bauman, but others as well. There was nerves at play where they're out there, they're suited up, they're playing live, football maybe for the first time in a lot of cases of the younger guys, in that college atmosphere and for Montana State. I mean, just how much more, even with a scrimmage under your belt, are the nerves possibly going to be at play when you are making your first start at Texas Tech? I mean, that is significant, and I don't know what the answer to that is, but at some point you do just have to go it is what it is. We got to just go out here and let it rip.
Interesting point, too, with a young quarterback during fall camp. Casey Bauman's only ever been playing against his teammates. And by the time you get to the last fall camp practice, the last fall camp scrimmage, now you've been going against the Montana State secondary. That's the only unit you've gone against for, count them up, more than 30 practices. So they know your tendencies better than anybody. They're screwing with you at that point.
Yeah.
And, of course, you're nervous because you're in front of your home crowd, whatever. What I'm saying is so much of the nerves in this game are going to be natural, as Jeff Choate just said, for Casey Bauman. But then say they run a play action and he hits Kevin Cassis for a 40-yard gain on his first throw. Now you're juiced. And now maybe the nerves completely go away. Maybe now you just ride the momentum for a little while. And then once you get hit in the back by the Big 12 caliber DN who's coming off the edge, now you're back to reality, but at least you're in it.
Yeah.
Rather than just melting down. And I think that's where it's going to all go. But say on the opposite, say you just throw a pick six on your first throw. Well, now you're in the dumps. Now what are you going to do? That's going to be the key is how does he bounce back? Because that's the whole key in all of football, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how bad you are. Almost everybody's going to get whipped at some point. Unless you're Aaron Donald. Besides that, like you're going to get humbled at some point, right? I mean, Peyton Manning probably threw 50 pick sixes in his career, right? So how do you bounce back from that? That's going to be the key. And also, though, how the coaches handle it, right? My whole analysis of this whole situation has been once they pick a dude, whether it was Tucker Rovig or Casey Bauman, they got to roll with that dude. Say Bauman throws 2 picks in the first quarter. You can't give him the hook because then I think you start you hit the nitro booster on the carousel because then it just starts going and it's never going to stop.
There is no here's the thing, there is no level that Casey Bauman could play at in terms of a negative, a bad level that would justify him being pulled.
I think that there's one circumstance. Say he pulls a Nathan Peterman, throws 5 picks in the first half.
The exception to that. He cannot be pulled from performance, period, no matter how bad it is. He can be pulled if you feel like he is about to like he's going to lose himself because of the way that he's playing, at which point you're taking him out to help him. You're not taking him out as like, oh, you're not playing well enough to be here. This happens in hockey, right, with goalies all the time. All of a sudden, you give up your 5th and 6th one. You're completely mentally out of it. You take the goalie out so that he's not humiliated anymore. You know what I mean? That's a scenario that hopefully for Montana State, that doesn't come to pass because that will be bad news. But to me, he goes out, you're right. If he throws 2 picks in the first quarter, does not matter. You're rolling back out there, period. You're our guy, and especially in this is not the game that matters, quote unquote, for Montana State. You want to go out there, take some live bullets, go, wow, we just played in Lubbock, Texas. That was pretty cool. Come back to Montana and get your season started.
That's what the thing I think is the biggest benefit. Is
you can do that.
There's certain positions where, like, say TJ Vasher does catch 3 touchdowns. He's got 150 yards. He just kills your corners, which I expect fully for Texas Tech to isolate that matchup and go right at him because Montana State's likely going to be starting Tyree Gibson at corner, redshirt freshman, first career start. You talk about, Casey Bauman's going to get plenty of reps. You get the ball in your hands all the time. So maybe you go 3 and out, 2 series in a row. You're working into it. When you're Tyree Gibson, you're just lined up against this 6'6" guy who's an all Big 12 receiver. That's the guy whose head's going to be spinning. That's where the nerves come from. But that's the thing. The guys on Southeast Missouri that are coming to Bozeman, Montana to play in the Gold Rush are going to seem like pedestrians compared to what you see. When you're Montana State's interior offensive line, there ain't nobody like the Bunkley kid you're going to go against in any other game that you play this year. So I think that's the benefit of the whole thing.
Stu Nuanez. It is the Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll keep going. It's game week, people. ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh of the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, what are people left dealing with after an accident?
Well, quite a few things, actually. We see people that are in pain, they still need to get to work, they need to raise their kids, and now they have to take time to go see doctors and other healthcare providers. They're frustrated with working with the insurance companies and getting the runaround. We'll take on the burden of dealing with the insurance companies so you can get the best settlement possible and get back to your life.
Find your advocate online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
Mark your calendar for the 4th annual Selway Armory tent sale. The lowest prices of the year on guns, ammunition, and accessories, and massive amounts of ammo to stock up for the entire year. September 13th and 14th in the Lolo Shopping Center parking lot on Highway 93. Tons of ammo, guns, and other items at below-cost blowout prices. September 13th and 14th, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday. The 4th annual Selway Armory tent sale at the Lolo Shopping Center, Highway 93.
More than 60 years ago, R.J. Rangich opened up Rangich Brothers with one thing in mind: quality and family tradition. Those family traditions continue today and live through our family, staff, and those who buy our RVs. So whether your travels include the shores of Flathead, Glacier Peaks, Yellowstone geysers, or the hidden gems in between, jump into Jayco and experience the best freedom you and your family will ever know. Only where a handshake means something. Rangich Brothers RV Center.
More bedrooms, a big yard, better commute. Whatever your reason to buy a new home, it's the right reason. In a tough housing market, the smartest thing you can do is pre-qualify for a loan before you start looking. Farmers State Bank makes it easier than ever to start the loan process with online checklists, forms, and calculators. Your dream home is out there. Get started today at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
They always say congratulations. Work so hard, forgot how to vacation. They ain't never had the dedication. People hate and say we changing, look, we made it. Yeah, we made it.
It's the Montana Football Hour, presented by Lithia Ford. The first hour of every show on Monday. First hour of every week. Covering Montana football. And it is finally game week. Walter Tutel Nuanez. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. We are going to spend a lot more time all week on Montana and Montana State and their games. I wanted to touch quickly, though, Coulter, on just acknowledging here, of course, high school football is getting started this week. Friday night lights going to be bright. Billings West, the AA level, is the defending state champs. Bozeman lost in an upset. They had been undefeated. They lost to Flathead in a semifinal game. So Flathead went to that championship game in Billings, lost in a really close, a low-scoring football game in the snow and the cold, like it should be for a state championship football game in the state of Montana. But we expect Flathead to be good again. We expect Billings West to certainly be good again. Bozeman generally is always good. They have suffered a pretty significant injury, though, Coulter, from what I understand, in their red-black scrimmage this past weekend.
Yeah, McCade O'Reilly is probably the best two-way player in AA. He suffered basically a broken ankle, and he is out for the season, which is a huge bummer. The official diagnosis, a fractured left fibula, so that's lower leg.
Yeah.
Painful, first of all, but O'Reilly's a stud. I mean, Joe Olson got hurt last year. And talk about the bad injuries for the two Bozeman running backs. Joe Olson breaks his wrist/arm last year, and then he comes back for the Shrine game, blows his knee, so he doesn't get invited to fall camp at Montana State because he's probably going to have to at least redshirt, maybe even gray shirt, to perhaps delay his eligibility. But then McCade O'Reilly came in and rushed for 1,400 yards as Olson's replacement to earn first-team All-State honors, even as being the best inside linebacker in the state as well. He's a first-team All-State inside linebacker, also a state champion wrestler. So the kid's a stud. In my opinion, I think he's the best recruit Montana State has gotten a verbal commit from so far this year. Montana's best are Carson Rostad from Hamilton, who will be fun to cover this year, exciting to watch, and Jackson Lee from Missoula Sentinel, who's a transfer from Flint Creek. Those two guys are going to be really fun to watch, too, when we're talking about high school football. But McCade O'Reilly being out, that hurts Bozeman big time, and it's a bummer, too, because he is now going to be coming to Montana State as a little bit of a damaged goods. I mean, that's an injury where it's a clean break, so I think that you can recover pretty well from it, but still a bummer. But back to your point, across the state and across the city, whatever we're talking about, it's going to be an intriguing year because I think AA is wide open. For sure. You know, Billings West does return a couple standouts. Josh Urbacher, the quarterback's back. DeMarcus Carr, their stud running back, is back. Connor Ryan, who recently committed to the Cats, he's back. But they did lose a lot as well, including Jesse Owens and Trevin Gradney, who are both playing here for the Grizzlies. Bozeman, this injury definitely hurts them. Flathead, a new coach because Kyle Sampson's now the offensive coordinator at Montana Tech. But then Missoula Sentinel has some intrigue. How much of a splash can Jackson Lee make?
Right.
How much does Levi Janicaro's little brother, Coulter Janicaro, help buoy Big Sky this year? Hellgate won 2 games last year. That changes the whole landscape of AA football because Hellgate won no games for years and years and years. Raleigh Wooster, definitely a playmaker. So I think that AA is wide open. I think Class A should be, it's going to be a redemption tour for Hamilton, having lost 2 straight state championship games, and they got the dude. They got the gunslinger in the state in Carson Rostad. Can they ride that momentum? Loyola, I mean, talk about highs and lows. Loyola they won 2 straight state championships about 5 and 4 years ago. Then they lose on the Hail Mary to Eureka a couple years ago. Then they lose to Fairfield after an epic run in the state championship last year. So they've experienced the whole gamut at the Class B level. So that'll be a fun story to cover. And then, like I wrote in the Sports Center this morning, Flint Creek, the Drummond-Phillipsburg Co-op, they're gunning for their third straight state title at the Class C level. And ironically, the last team to do that was Drummond before it was a co-op back when Chase Reynolds and the boys were playing. So a lot of good storylines in high school football to cover throughout the year.
Well, it's certainly a fun time of year. Love watching and checking in on the high school kids, and we'll be certainly paying attention to them. And we'll have some interviews coming up with you from some area coaches, here coming up, headed into the season, and certainly throughout the season as well. It is Tutel Nuanez. That puts a period at the end of the Montana Football Hour, presented by Lithia Ford. It certainly does not mean we stop talking about football in the state of Montana, though. I mean, it is what we're going to do. It's what we're here to do. But next, we got to talk a little bit, right? Sometimes national stories pop up, and you go, let the national people take the national stuff. But this is one that is pretty remarkable, I think, to just about everybody, and certainly worth us talking about for a while. Andrew Luck retiring at the age of 29 over the weekend. What's the right reaction to have? What was your reaction? We'll get to all of it next. And will he ever play again?
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, ooh, pump it up, pump it up.
Summer is more fun with a cold beverage at your side. Stop into Town Pump and pick up refreshing Pepsi and Coke products, 12 packs for only $4.99. Complete your picnic with Calypso Lemonade, 2 for $3.33. Well stocked and ready for you. Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate.
The Last Best Outdoors Fest is coming to Missoula September 4th. It all kicks off at 3 at the Wilma with Montana Jobs in the Outdoors, highlighting the Blackfoot Clearwater Stewardship Act. A panel discussion led by Senator John Tester. The festival moves to Karis Park at 5 with food trucks, a beer garden, and music by Russ Nassett and the Revelators and Jackson Holt and the Highway Patrol. Free and open to the public thanks to Business for Montana's Outdoors, the Montana Wildlife Federation, Montana Wilderness Association, and the Wilderness Society. Details at lastbestoutdoorsfest.com.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. The Missoula Osprey won 3 straight games on Friday and Saturday before dropping a doubleheader Sunday to cap an unprecedented stretch away from the Garden City. Because of field damage to Ogren Park and Allegiance Field stemming from the Mumford & Sons concert, the O's have now played 18 consecutive road games, culminating in that doubleheader Sunday. They lost 4-1 in the first game, 4-2, in the first game, 10-1 in the second game. They are now 15-12 on the second half of this season. The Osprey are 5 games behind Billings with 2 weeks to play. The good news for Missoula, Billings is coming to town and Missoula is coming home. The Osprey hosting the Billings Mustangs in a 3-game set beginning tomorrow night.
High school and college football get underway around the state of Montana and around the country this week. At the prep level, Missoula Sentinel will try to bounce back from a 2018 season filled with narrow, disappointing losses, while Missoula Big Sky will look to return to the playoffs after a 1-year absence. Hellgate snapped a historic losing streak last season and returned many contributors, including star quarterback Raleigh Wooster, and Billings West is the defending Class AA champions.
In small school prep football, the Flint Creek Titans will look to become the first Class C 8-man team since Drummond from 03 to 05 to win 3 straight state titles. Billings Central looks for a second Class A title, although Grizz quarterback commit Carson Rosted and the Hamilton Bronx will have plenty to say about that. In Class B, Sacred Heart
Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Andrew Luck ever play football again? That's the poll question. 75% of you say no. I would tend to agree with that group. It's Tutel Nuanez, 109 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour, listen on the podcast. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app or iTunes or Spotify or anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. You can listen to the Tutel Nuanez podcast. Thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. 329-1899, the phone number. You want to give us a call? Feel free. We'd be happy to talk with you. 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rankish Brothers RV phone line. You can listen live on the stream, 1029ESPN.com. The stream brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank. Your opportunity. Coulter, I was at Roots Fest over the weekend. I was there with the kids, enjoying some great music. Fun down there, by the way, this weekend. If you were down there, which you likely were, because a lot of people were, it was a lot of fun down there. Some unbelievable art, some great setups, some great tent setup with some cool wares being handed out. Obviously, some fantastic music, some great food, all of it. A fun community event. And I'm standing down there on Saturday evening, and I hear Andrew Luck retired. I said, excuse me? No. Retired. Wow. That's a stunner. And it became less and less of a stunner with every passing second that I actually thought about it. In fact, Kevin Van Valkenburg, I thought, sent a great tweet about it. He goes, if you stand on the sideline, the hits are sounds you can never unhear. The crazy thing is playing. And there's a lot of truth to that.
I mean, you just go stand on the sidelines of a college football practice in Montana, and it's crazy.
Yeah. So, but this is, I mean, you're still talking about a guy who was the chosen one, and when he was played at a very high level, and in particular last year, I believe was he not the bounce back player of the year, the comeback player of the year last year, after being out for essentially a whole season, and was phenomenal. I mean, I thought Andrew Luck looked like a bad man when he was playing football last season. And, you hear about this foot thing, this ankle thing, and so forth. And then you hear about, like, maybe more stuff like maybe he's having a hard time picking up his child because of his shoulder, and that maybe there was a mistake made in the shoulder surgery. And then you hear, I mean, you don't hear, that he played with a bruised spleen. I mean, don't even get me started on the level of impact that it would take to do that. And
especially for a guy as big as him.
I mean, it's insane. And by the way, if you want to place blame, to me it starts in the front office, and not so much with Jim Irsay, but more the general manager level, where you get the absolute can't-miss quarterback in a draft that you could only pray to get, and then are absolutely unable and completely, utterly unable to protect him. I mean, he's wrecked because he was rolled out there with nothing to help him. And now that they have done the work to build the team around him, particularly up front, and they have a good offensive line now, he's not there and is no longer able or willing to play. I listened to Andrew Luck's entire press conference, which was sort of impromptu. He was planning on having it Sunday, but then the tweet got out, and then, it was sort of forced to fast forward. And here's the thing that I was struck by about Andrew Luck is when he started talking about 2016, and he said, you know what, I knew I couldn't practice all the time. He said, I knew that if I was ever faced with that perspective or possibility again, that I would not do what I did the first time. I would walk away. And he said I ended up in a, and he almost said it in passing, but he kind of said I ended up in a pretty dark place. And I don't know if that was emotionally. I don't know if that was from a rehab standpoint and some of the things that go along with that. But it was very clear to me that this is a guy who, he said, that injuries and the pain rehab loop that he has been in have taken away the fun of the game, the enjoyment of the sport. I would think it would. Yes, I would. That seems to me to make all the sense in the world. But also, a guy who he's an incredibly smart. He's not merely a Stanford grad, right? I mean, Andrew Luck is one of the truly, deep thinkers and intellectuals that football has, and there's not many, and he's one of them. And the impact that your mind can have on you when any of us encounter various things that that go through things, whether it's personal, experiential, whether it's circumstantial, whatever it is, it can have a pretty significant impact on your psyche and your sort of mental well-being. And what I saw was a guy who, and he said as much, that he was tired and not merely physically tired, that he was emotionally, mentally tired. And I take him at his word on that. And for all the people who are shocked by this, and I was, just like everybody. I mean, I think anybody who heard this goes, what are you talking about? But also, the more that I think about him, who he is and what he's gone through, the more this makes actually all the sense in the world to me. And I think I kind of really applaud him. I mean, it's not easy to go into your owner who's paid you millions and millions and millions of dollars and has basically a franchise resting on you and go, I'm sorry, I like you, but I am not willing to do this anymore. That's not an easy conversation to have, and I think there's a lot of guys who probably would have liked to have done that couldn't bring themselves to that place to do it. And Andrew Luck did it, and his legacy is going to be a very interesting one when we look back years from now at who and what he is. And is this a precedent-setting move? I don't know, but this was a stunner over the weekend. But I have grown actually in my respect for Andrew Luck out of this, not lessened in it.
Me too. What's the worst injury you've ever experienced?
I mean, I've been pretty lucky, all things considered. Aside from my chronic foot, which is not really an injury, I've broken an arm.
Okay. Have you ever blown up your ankle?
No, I've never torn
or a knee or a shoulder,
never torn a ligament. Never.
I'm not here to say, oh, here's all the crazy injuries I've had. I've had a lot of crazy injuries, though. But that's a matter of just luck and lack of grace or whatever. But the whole point is, though,
you're just obviously not strong enough.
What I'm getting at here, though, is that I think that, first of all, there's been a lot of blowback at this. There's been a lot of vitriol. Andrew Luck was booed as he's coming off the field. And as you were arguing with our good buddy Sean Rainey from SWX Montana.
On this,
Well, right. Yeah, but as you were saying, it is an emotional thing that happened in that moment and, whatever. What I'm getting at, though, is that the majority of people that watch the NFL have never suffered any injuries that are anywhere close to what Andrew Luck has suffered. They have not exploded their ankle. I mean, go break your ankle and have all the ligaments pop and tell me how it feels. It's horrific. I'd rather get hit in the head with a sledgehammer. I would rather get hit right between the eyes with a sledgehammer than have some of the ankle injuries that these guys have had. I mean, there's so many nerve endings. There's so much pain. It hurts so bad. And then you talk about the brain element of this, both the mental element of trying to come back from a lower extremity injury, but also just the brain trauma that you might experience yourself. And I think that there's also a massive misperception that all surgeries and all surgeons are created equal. It's not the truth.
No, it is not.
There has been so many people that have had surgeries go awry, and it's not even necessarily the surgeon's fault. A lot of times you might just be not suited for surgery. Not everybody heals the same. Not everybody reacts to medication and painkillers and anesthesia the same. So to say that because Adrian Peterson can blow out his knee and then come back from that 9 months later with no complaints and then rush for 2,000 yards, that's the standard, but that's not realistic for anyone. No. It's not realistic for athletes, and that's the thing that we have, I think, has gone by the wayside. And there's no way for anybody to tell Andrew Luck what he feels like. If he truly lost the joy of the game, football is far too dangerous and takes far too much commitment for you to try to play in the NFL without having full passion for what you are doing.
For sure.
And the other thing is, I thought this was a very interesting tweet. This is from Hannah Kaiser. She is a national baseball writer for yahoosports.com.
I love Hannah Kaiser.
I thought this was the best take I read on Twitter. She said, "Not that you needed my opinion, but I do not begrudge Andrew Luck one bit for opting out of the arms race that is medical science as it relates to modern professional sports and the kind of pain management we demand of players so that every pro sport can always be getting bigger, faster, and stronger." It's so true. And that's the NFL in a nutshell, right? If you can't hack it, we'll just find another one. We'll just find somebody. And it's harder to replace a headliner player like Andrew Luck. But the thing is, this was shocking because Andrew Luck is such a visible person. He's been in the spotlight since he was a sophomore in college at Stanford.
And just came off,
a tremendous season.
Best season.
Right, and
he had moved into the ranks of the elite.
Totally. And all the things that go behind it. I mean, the fact that he was anointed as the chosen one, the next great quarterback, the fact that you moved on from Peyton Manning as the Indianapolis Colts for this guy. And I think there's such an element of this being so shocking because Andrew Luck has so many questions surrounding his career. Because when you by and large analyze it, he has been tremendously individually talented. He was dealt a terrible hand in Indianapolis, and he made the best of it. They made the playoffs, I think, 3 times in his 7
and
seasons?
One of the great comebacks, right, in the history of the game against Kansas City.
Totally. But on the flip side, you'll always say, what if he hadn't been hurt for more than half of his career?
Well,
on the flip side, you'll always say, how did that guy only win 2 playoff games? With all the talent he has, how did he only win 2 playoff games? But the whole point that I'm making here is that Andrew Luck is more visible in doing this, but he's not the first one to do this. In my mind, Andrew Luck is a borderline Hall of Famer. Maybe. I don't think so, though. I don't think he's a Hall of Fame guy. I think his career was too short. He had Hall of Fame potential, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Agreed. Patrick Willis is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he walked away at the exact same age. Mm-hmm. You try to tell me Patrick Willis isn't tough? You want to know how hard this is on your body? Look at Patrick Willis. I mean, he's one of the toughest guys in the world.
San Francisco, they had a kid who was in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year, played 1 year, said no, good.
Followed Patrick Willis's lead.
Exactly.
Right. And Calvin Johnson?
Yeah.
I mean, Calvin Johnson is first ballot Hall of Famer all day. He walked away, 29 years old.
Barry Sanders. I mean,
Barry Sanders? Great one.
So
Gale Sayers?
This is maybe more the most recent, but I do think, well, it's hard for me to say. I think this was I think this is a little bit sobering to a lot of people, though, to sit there and go, okay, well, if that's what's going on with this guy, where are we at on the not the physicality. I mean, we know where we're at on the physicality of it. It's the most physically demanding and frankly physically painful game on earth.
But I really don't think that people truly get it.
No, how could you?
Like, I don't think that they realize that pro NFL athletes, they spend as much time watching film and practicing as they do rehabbing.
No.
I mean, these guys are straight sitting in the training room for 3 or 4 hours a day.
Yes. It's
and if you did it, you wouldn't be able to even move.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not Andrew Luck. That's more of the high impact positions. But these guys, I mean, people are making fun of Antonio Brown for his cryogenic chamber freezing of his feet. But you have to go to that level, those sort of measures if you want to last in the NFL after the age of 28.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. The fans in Indianapolis, particularly who were there in the game, have been basically ripped across the board for booing Andrew Luck as he left, and he addressed it in his press conference. Said yes, it did hurt. That's what he said. It did hurt, which of course it would. At this very moment, I do not fault the fans in the stadium for booing Andrew Luck as he left the field. If you are a fan in the stadium who is the Colts are your team and Andrew Luck is your guy, and he is sitting there, and you get a tweet from Schefter that says, "Thanks, but I'm out," where you're 2 weeks away from the start of the season, your reaction unequivocally is, this dude quit. He straight quit. And you don't have the context of it, of all the things that have now kind of come after it and the thought process. You're standing there on the sideline like nothing, and you're quitting this football team on a year where we're built to. I mean, the Colts were going to be a major player in the AFC. They're not going to be now.
Oh,
period.
No. Oh yeah, no. Jacoby Brissett.
Like, all well and good, but no.
He's not all well and good, though. The drop-off, I mean, when you go from a guy who's one of the top 6 quarterbacks in the league to a guy who's surely not in the top 35, that's one of the biggest drop-offs you could have.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, Jacoby Brissett, I think he's maybe a little better than top 35, but the fact of the matter is whatever you thought you were going to be, you're not that now. And a 29-year-old guy goes, "Thanks for the millions of dollars, I'm out." Now, I'm not, my perspective on it. That's not what happened at all, and I respect Andrew Luck in this, but I got no problem with the fans booing in the moment him as he's leaving the stadium. I completely understand that, and Sean Rainey pointed out to me today, there's also an element of mob mentality to that as well. I think that's also very real. Like, one guy starts, "What do you how could you leave us? How could you do this?" People taking off their jerseys and so forth and so on. I think if he was to come back and he was to get booed somehow, that would be unforgivable to me, to the fans of Indianapolis. Like, after you get a picture of what in the world is going on and understand what he's up, what has gone into this. But I people think that, quote unquote, quitting is cowardice. I think this was a move of courage on the part of Andrew Luck to do this. I really do. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. I guess I don't have to reset my power rankings because I still didn't have the Colts winning their division.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, first of all, I think this is a golden opportunity for a division, because that division, I mean, you could argue that 3 out of the 4 teams are potential playoff teams, right? I mean, the Texans,
I think you can make an argument that 4 out of the 4 teams were potential playoff teams. The Titans were the number 3 team in scoring defense.
Sorry, I just made a mistake in my brain. I was thinking that the Bucks, that's the NFC South. Oh, right. The Titans have been they've been 9-7 3 years in a row, so they've been in the playoff mix.
All 4 of those teams have a look at the postseason.
Yeah.
Even the Colts still have a look at it, but they were going to the playoffs. And now I got them 4th out of 4.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing about this is what happens when you choose to, when the quarterback is the central pillar of your roster construction. Mm-hmm. Like, T.Y. Hilton's good. I don't think T.Y. Hilton's as good as everybody. I should rephrase that. T.Y. Hilton is not quite as good as what his production has been the last couple of years, because Andrew Luck makes T.Y. Hilton the best version of himself, and in turn one of the 10 or 12 best receivers in the league.
Right.
But I think T.Y. Hilton, his production is probably going to cut in half without his.
I don't think it'll be half, but it'll be 30%.
He's not a 1,000-yard receiver without Andrew Luck, and he's a 1,300-yard receiver with Andrew Luck.
On one hand, I mean, here's the thing: the passing game is going to drop by fully a third at least.
Oh yeah.
T.Y. Hilton himself actually might be just fine.
Sure.
Because it might be Jacoby Brissett going, best player of the team, keep throwing it. Just keep throwing it to him. Whereas Andrew Luck, has the capability to read it, set it up and do the thing. But your point is taken. Andrew Luck is responsible for that team's offensive productivity to the hilt. Maybe, I mean, as much for sure as any other, any other individual player on any team. I mean, if you took, he's more responsible for the productivity in Indianapolis than last year Drew Brees was for the productivity of the Saints. Saints got great players around Drew Brees. The Colts, Marlon Mack, I mean, that's your guy. I mean, that's fine, but, like, he's okay. He's no Alvin Kamara, and frankly, T.Y. Hilton is no Michael Thomas. Mm-mm. Like, not even close.
Mm-mm. Right.
So, I mean, their role. Eric Ebron is a quintessential point. He had no good years. His entire career,
total bust.
First year he goes to Indianapolis,
13 touchdowns,
bang.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you on all this. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We'll do a quick break. Colton wants to talk about Dwight Howard going to the Lakers for $0. We'll explain next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Alpine Touch has mastered keeping your taste buds happy by spicing up anything you throw on the grill this summer. Now, let Alpine Touch keep your mouth watering whenever you want their new sunflower shooters. Their new jumbo sunflower seeds seasoned with Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasonings. And Alpine Touch sunflower shooters will be available all summer at every Osprey baseball home game. Available at retail locations around the state and online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO beverages. Our expertly mixed cocktails, microbrews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Don't think you have time for lunch? Town Pump has your back right down the road. Burritos in the deli are 2 for $2.22. Wash it down with your favorite fountain-sized drink, any size, for just $1. Pick up lunch or a snack on your way to summer adventure at Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
The Polaris Factory Authorized Clearance is here. The world's best-selling off-road lineup is priced to move with financing as low as 3.99% and rebates up to $3,500. Live life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. The best deals of the year are happening now. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $3,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Factory Authorized Clearance. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Kurtz Polaris is now showcasing all of the new 2020 Polaris off-road vehicles. To be the first to get a great deal on brand new state-of-the-art Polaris vehicles at Kurtz Polaris. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. Rebates valid in U.S. through 9/30/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Financing offer valid on 2015 through 2020. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon. Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. The Missoula Osprey won 3 straight games on Friday and Saturday. They then dropped a doubleheader on Sunday, and they finished off an unprecedented 18 straight road games over the weekend in Great Falls. Missoula lost 4-2 and 10-1, falling to 15-12 overall in the second half. They've, of course, been on the road because of the unplayable conditions at Overland Park Allegiance Field. But that all ends now. Missoula returning to Overland Park tomorrow night for 3 games against Billings, who currently has a 5-game lead on the O's in the second half.
High school football get underway around the state and around the country this week. Around Missoula at the prep level, Missoula Sentinel will try to bounce back from a 2018 season filled with narrow and disappointing losses, while Missoula Big Sky looks to return to the playoffs after a one-year absence. Hellgate snapped a historic losing streak last season and returns many contributors, including star quarterback Raleigh Wooster, and Billings West. They are the defending Class AA champions.
In small school prep football, the Flint Creek Titans will look to become the first Class C 8-man team since Drummond in 2003 to 2005 to win 3 straight state titles. Billings Central looks for a second straight Class A title, although Grizz quarterback commit Carson Roston and the Hamilton Broncs will have plenty to say. The Class B Loyola Sacred Heart looks to bounce back after losing in the championship to Fairfield.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
California, maybe.
I'm going to retire tomorrow when I turn 26, and I'm going to California. I'm leaving this train wreck show.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Tommy, your birthday is tomorrow. Congratulations, 26. Excellent, outstanding. I don't know if it's a compliment that everybody thinks you're older than you are or not, but they do. I am looking forward to Noodle Palooza tomorrow afternoon. I still don't know what noodles I'm bringing to it, but I am going to bring my children, so at least they'll be eating the noodles that I will not be providing. And furthermore, you are going to California in a month or so.
I am.
To go to Disneyland.
That's true. It's going to be a great time.
See, for as old as you are, you're actually a child, because Vegas and Disneyland are the places that you want to go. Let me go see all the fun things, all the lights.
I'm all about the lights. One of my great friends, Lizette, is a member of the 10,000 Club at Disney. And what she said to me was, you've got to go to Disney with me.
What is that?
I'm yet to find out, but she speaks highly of it.
Okay. So she's invited you. So are you getting extra perks for going with somebody who's part of the 10,000 Club?
I honestly have no idea what's going on or what to expect.
Have you ever been to Disneyland, Tom?
A number of times, but as a child.
What is their coin dozer situation?
Dude, no, you don't understand. They have them there.
I bet they do. I bet they're the size of small islands. The coin dozers at
yeah,
Disneyland.
It's going to be fun. So Lizette called me up and said, look, I bought these tickets. You and I are going to go trick-or-treating at the Oogie Boogie Bash, the Disney Halloween not-so-scary party in October. It's a week long. We will be there for a week. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. Here's your ticket. We're going. So now I'm going to go.
Is it a different costume every day, or do you pick one and ride it out to the end?
Well, I'm going to need some help deciphering this.
It can't be scary, though?
It's not supposed to be scary.
How are you going to manage that? I mean, you're always in the gory stuff.
Yeah, that's not for me, man.
What are you going to do? Just go as a cloud?
You know, I did dress up as Kip one year from Napoleon.
Yes, okay, that's not scary. That's a good one.
The problem was, as soon as I slicked the hair back and you get this full giant forehead and full, it was a little too close to Kip for comfort. And was very, very questionable.
Could you get the mustache on?
I did. I taped it on.
Oh, you did a fake one.
Yeah. You think I can grow a mustache? Like a half of some peach fuzz, maybe.
Okay, well, I mean, Kip's wasn't exactly full, you know. Well, good, Tommy. I hope you enjoy yourself at a children's Halloween party that lasts a week. That sounds like absolute awful vacation to me. But if you think it's going to be fun, then I wish you the best. Here's what I'm asking you, though. The coin dozers are coming back to the fair, every year. So don't waste your time coin dozing at Disneyland. Go ride the rides, man.
If there's a loophole in the prize situation, which I doubt there will be, I will extort it to the fullest. I will priority ship you an Xbox One.
Okay, now if the week culminates in me receiving an Xbox One, then you can do whatever's needed.
Dude, I already do that anyway.
I already need, because I'm 2 games back. My only game that I've ever cared about in my life is Just Cause 2, and they're already on to Just Cause 4, and I've never played Just Cause 3. So I've got a lot of work to do.
Sometimes that's a plus, though, because the ones following the really golden, games sometimes are kind of crummy.
Well, it may be, but I will not. I don't know, because the when Just Cause 3 came out, it was only for Xbox One, so I had no friends that had ascended to that level of Xbox.
Do you have any vacation time left, or are me and Colt are just going to leave you high and dry here?
I still got about 6-7 weeks.
I really messed up by saving it all for the time of year when I can't leave. No, but I am leaving on Friday, so there it is.
You're going to be here on Friday, the day before college football starts, and you're out because you're going to Davapalooza.
Yeah, Ryan, you have no room to talk. You have left Coulter at the most important times ever of this show.
Absolutely false.
It's actually not false.
You left on the first day of fall camp. It's the busiest day of the year for me. You could have picked any day of the entire schedule, any of them.
It's fall camp, and Ryan's going.
Day.
And you're sitting there going, well, maybe I should buy this shrimp hatchery, while Coulter's running around with his head cut off.
Hey, you never know. You never know, man, when you might need to have a shrimp hatchery. By the way, as it turns out, I bought a trailer. It's now completely ready and for sale. So if you need a very, very nice, updated, beautiful new trailer for hunting or for the family, Craigslist people, go check it out. Beautifully done.
Like a camper trailer?
Yeah, it's a camper.
Fifth wheel?
No. Pull behind, double axle, 18-foot. It's a Road Ranger. 1975 Road Ranger. Fully redone. New plumbing.
PEX pipe?
Perhaps.
Can tell you didn't do the project, right?
No, you believe me, that's nothing but good news to the buyer. Nothing but good news. Okay. Coulter is as hot as the turf in Lubbock, Texas right now that we haven't talked
only
about
because I can't figure out how to mute the audio on your stupid sound file in the back room. Anybody that's watching on SMX television, I'm just trying to get the press conference for Bobby Hauck uploaded, and I'm not even going to bore you with the technological details, but I keep going back there because I can't figure out how to get the one channel turned off. I asked Tommy, as I always do, because I can't do anything around here without Tommy.
No.
I'm not hot about this at all. I'm not even paying attention to you.
Oh, that's not new. Coulter, tell the people about Dwight Howard and his $0 paychecks that he's now receiving from the Los Angeles Lakers.
Well, so we all know, first of all, I was thinking this when we were talking about the Team USA basketball the other day.
Yeah.
We were talking about the 2008 team and the way that influenced the face of the NBA, because those guys were sort of the return to dominance for Team USA, right? The United States won the gold medal in 2004 as well, but 2008 was when you had in his prime Kobe Bryant playing within his prime LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade and Dwight Howard, who was not a malcontent. I mean, you have to remember that Dwight Howard was absolutely transcendent talent at that moment in time. There was no knock on Dwight Howard at that moment.
Yeah.
It was only, man, how good could this guy be? Because he's already unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about that exact element, how, because the following year, it was either the following season or 2 seasons later, Dwight Howard led the Orlando Magic of all teams to the NBA Finals. I mean, Dwight Howard was second in the MVP voting. Dwight Howard was by far the best rebounder in the NBA, by far the best defensive player in the NBA, and he had 0 offensive skills, yet he was still scoring 24 points a game because he could dunk on anybody and everybody at any time. And he was such a magnetic star. And it's just amazing. He has one of the most profound falls from grace of any superstar in the last 20 years, maybe ever, in American pro sports. I mean, Dwight Howard was absolutely beloved and then absolutely hated. Mm-hmm. I can't really think of anybody that went from that high to that low. Mm-hmm. And the saga with the Los Angeles Lakers, which was the first domino to the Lakers going from premier model franchise to one of the laughingstocks of the league, honestly.
Yeah.
I think, what's the stat? There's 5 teams in the NBA that have missed the playoffs 6 years in a row, and the Lakers are one of them. How did that happen? How do we? The Lakers and the Knicks. How do we get to that point? Like, how is that even possible? But the Steve Nash, Dwight Howard falling out in Los Angeles was well chronicled, but there was never really any details attached to Dwight Howard. Kobe Bryant just used to say, you're soft. You're not working hard enough. He was lazy, whatever. But there was never any specific details attached to it. So now today, after Dwight Howard has played for 6 teams in 6 years and is a complete shell of himself, has completely tarnished his reputation and his legacy, Dwight Howard basically goes to the Lakers and starts begging for a last chance. And I really don't think anybody in the league was going to give him another shot. But according to people in his camp, according to people in the Lakers camp, he showed up. He's lost 25 pounds. He looks like Superman, not like a shell of himself. And don't get me wrong, Dwight Howard in his worst shape would be the envy of almost any person walking this earth because he is as genetically gifted as their.
You think genetics don't matter? Have you heard the story about Dwight Howard and his eating?
He's got the candy closet, right?
He was experiencing numbness in his fingers, and they couldn't really figure out why. And then somebody saw him with a candy bar, and the doctor's like, how much of this do you eat? He's like, a case of king-size candy bars a day. 24 king-size Snickers or whatever every single day.
5% body fat.
Biggest muscles leaping ability you've ever seen. Just can't feel his fingers because he's got a Tommy Evans scale sugar rush happening at all times. I mean, it's just incomprehensible.
It's incomprehensible. But regardless, Dwight Howard apparently looks like he's in the best shape of his career. The other thing is he's struggling with so many back issues, and so much of that back issues when you have the muscular structure that he has. If you're too big and you're not maintaining the proportionality of your muscularity, you're going to have back problems.
It's out of whack.
The fact that he came in and he passed his physical, his back looks good, he's lost all this weight, he looks, by all accounts, he's ready to give this another go. So he basically begs the Lakers to give him a deal. So today the Lakers signed him to what they call a summer contract. So Dwight Howard signed a contract for $0 today. Dwight Howard will get paid per day that he is employed by the Lakers. They can terminate that employment at any time for almost any cause. Dwight Howard will get paid $14,197 per day by Los Angeles Lakers, and
starting October 27th.
Starting on October 27th. And any time that they decide Dwight Howard is not for us, he's not working hard, he's not a fit, he's not good enough, whatever it might be, he's out. But if Dwight Howard continues to earn it, now all of a sudden Dwight Howard, he has a chance to play his way back in the league one last chance.
People going, holy cow, $14,000 a day, that's a giant amount of money. Yeah, it is. But in the NBA, where Snoozy McSnoozerson can earn $20 million a year, it's $2.5 million a year is what that pencils out to over the course of an NBA season.
Which is a little bit less than half of what the veterans minimum is.
Right. So
they're getting a great deal.
He's playing for next to nothing.
Excuse me.
Even when he's getting paid.
Excuse me. It's twice what the veterans minimum is. The veterans minimum is $1.2 million, but it's half of what the mid-level exemption is. The mid-level exemption, I believe, is $5.5 million, so a little less than half of that. Either way, like you said, I mean, you got dudes you never even heard of that are making $8 million a year in the NBA right now, so it's a good deal.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio.
I'm making about $1.5 million a year.
Cents?
All the time, baby.
So last night, Tommy, I'm sitting at Ryan and Tina's. Tina's using my camera to take pictures of their new and beautiful camper that they're selling. And Ryan and Tina are outside, on and off for probably a good 90 minutes, but for, not in the house for a good 45, maybe 50 minutes. And Alethea, Ryan's,
thank you for watching the kids.
Alethea, Ryan's oldest daughter, looks at me and says, well, where's mom and dad? And I say, well, they went to Mexico. They took the new camper and they're gone. They went to Mexico.
You're a great babysitter.
And Alethea says, well, how long do you think they're going to be gone for? I said, there's no telling. Maybe a week, 10 days. We'll see. And I said, but we got it. We'll have it covered. I said, Alethea, you're in charge of the house. Zoe, you're in charge of the fun. And Kai, you're in charge of the food. And Kai, on cue, looks at me and goes, okay, I'll make pizza. But Alethea says to me, she says, oh, as long as it's only a week, we'll be just fine. She says, I got $1,300 and I got a Costco card that I turned into a credit card. I said, I said, first of all, Lethea, you have $1,300. I said, I don't have $1,300. How does a 7-year-old have $1,300? She says, no, I have 1,300 coins, not $1,300. But I said, that's still impressive. That's, I mean, say their quarters. What does she got? She's got a couple $100. Pretty good. Regardless, she was not concerned whatsoever. She was like, cool. I'm running the house. I got my Costco card. We're set.
She's been begging us to leave.
Oh, every time you say...
because she doesn't like us, but also because she just wants the responsibility of taking care of her little siblings.
Yeah.
Believe me, kiddo, there's nothing I want more than to allow you this rite of passage. Mark your calendar for the 4th annual Selway Armory tent sale. The lowest prices of the year on guns, ammunition, and accessories, and massive amounts of ammo to stock up for the entire year. September 13th and 14th in the Lolo Shopping Center parking lot on Highway 93. Tons of ammo, guns, and other items at below-cost blowout prices. September 13th and 14th, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday. The 4th annual Selway Armory tent sale at the Lolo Shopping Center, Highway 93.
Hey everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you make a recovery. You'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at MontanaAdvocates.com.
Coach Houck has a lot of confidence in his team. Besides that, there was not a lot of detail.
Football season is upon us. You know what that means? For the second year in a row, the first hour of every week on Tutel and Nuanez is the Montana Football Hour, 60 minutes dedicated to football across the Treasure
State as well. The first Montana Football Hour for 2019 broadcast from the Big Sky Kickoff in Spokane. Throughout the rest of 2019, we'll bring you the best in football coverage, whether it's the Bobcats, the Grizzlies, the Frontier Conference, or high school football in the great state of Montana.
There is nothing better than football season. Coulter and I love it. We know that you love it, and we want to make sure we bring it to you. The coaches, the players, the games, the analysis, opinion, and information that makes football run across the state will be right here, 102.9 ESPN Radio, every Monday from 4 till 5. Be more than just a fan. Be an educated fan. Everything you'll ever need to know about football across the state of Montana will be delivered to you during the Montana Football Hour, presented by Lithia Ford.
Have you been hurt or disabled? Are you missing time from work and not sure what to do? I'm attorney Chris Helmer, and Clark Fork Law Offices in Missoula is here to help. Our team specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. We fight for the benefits you deserve. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
What do you get when you mix every NFL preseason game? Cold beer and the best wings in Missoula? The Desperado Sports Tavern. The Desperado is Missoula's premier Southside sports tavern. With 32 HD TVs, there's not a chance you'll miss a second of every NFL preseason game. It's time to start watching your favorite players and building your fantasy team at the Desperado. That's cold beer, NFL preseason, the best wings in Missoula, and you at the Desperado Sports Tavern. Located on Russell, across from the Y.
Tutel and Nuanez. Listen to the podcast on the TuneIn Radio app or on iTunes, 1029ESPN.com.
They always say congratulations. Work so hard, forgot how to vacation. They ain't never had the dedication.
Tutel and Nuanez. Live on the stream at 1029ESPN.com. The stream is available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Coulter Nuanez.
You're welcome, Coulter, for getting that sound fixed up.
Thanks, Tommy.
It's Tutel and Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio.
Everyone
I'll give
counting
you
on
some
me.
tickets to the Osprey. Why? Well, because they haven't been here in a while, and so you should go. And we want to help you out with that. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the show, listen on the podcast. The podcast available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Rate it, review it, like it, listen, click the links. Appreciate that. Podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Coulter, the Osprey had an opportunity, having won 3 games in 2 days on Friday and Saturday in Great Falls, to make some headway against the number one team, who is the number one team here in the second half, that being the Billings Mustangs. But they ended up dropping their 5th and 6th games in 4 days in a doubleheader against Great Falls, which certainly is disappointing for the O's. So they end up in a 5-game deficit, which, first of all, Billings was terrible in the first half, particularly initially. I mean, they are like 2-10 at one point. They have been much, much better here in the second half. And Missoula has done something that I would bet is unprecedented in the history of Pioneer League baseball. They have been on an 18-game road trip. And we all, probably are aware at this point of the scenario involving the field coming out of the Mumford & Sons concert and the rain and just unplayable conditions and all that. But on one hand, to only be 5 games back and, frankly, have an opportunity finally coming back to Missoula to play the team that you are trailing here in the second half. And it's going to be a major push. I mean, the Osprey, they need to sweep Billings in this 3-game set is basically what it comes down to. You got to beat them head-to-head, and then you get yourself in striking distance going into the last week of the season, with a 2-game deficit, and you're really in business there. But they really do need a sweep of Billings to make the postseason. But to be in the hunt after having been out for almost a month from the city is remarkable. What we want to do here is give away some tickets. In fact, a lot of tickets. We're going to give away 8 tickets right now to tomorrow night's baseball game. And remember, all the tickets that you have, if you have tickets to any of the games that existed during the homestand that was not played in Missoula, you can redeem those tickets down at the box office for new tickets to any of the games in this homestand. So we're going to give away 8 tickets right now. 329-1899, 329-1899. That's a boatload, people. 329-1899, 8 tickets to tomorrow night's Missoula Osprey Billings Mustangs game. But I mean, it's one thing it's a whirlwind to play single A, rookie A, Pioneer League, anyway, minor league baseball in general. But when you are straight buses and hotels, and then you think you're going to play in Missoula, and then, oh, no, you're going to Idaho, and, oh, no, now you're going back to Great Falls, and you just got no chance to even come back to the place where you're, in fact, living and have, your stuff and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it is a true sort of a marathon. It is a work of persistence and perseverance to get to this point and to be competitive in the games that you've played. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and I hope that Missoula is able to come back and have a successful final homestand here of the season.
The Pioneer League has been fascinating this year because there's been several different teams in both the North and the South that started off with stacked rosters and or elite players. Lever Peguero being the elite player for the Osprey, who really led them all the way down the stretch run of the first half and almost to the first half title. They just missed it, but then Peguero gets moved up, and they've actually been able to tread water okay, and they've been competitive, and they have a above 500 record. Whereas, like you said, the Mustangs were awful, but then they added a couple guys to their roster, and they've been really good in the second half, winning the Pioneer League North. Idaho Falls won 13 of their first 14 games, came back down to earth, but still won the first half. They just basically forfeited.
7-20.
I was going to say they've just forfeited the second half. They have just been using it for development, which is what we talked about at the break. Though we said, hey, if you clinch the first half, well, then you can just ride the whole second half, just developing guys, and then hopefully you can get back on track when it comes down to the actual playoff.
Right.
But then there's the Ogden Raptors who have just been rolling, and they have not taken a step back. They haven't moved anybody up or down. I think they have a couple guys promoted, but regardless, their talent remains the best in the league by a long shot, and they're running away with the South for the second time, or I guess for the second half as well, after destroying in the first half too. Yeah. But it's crazy how fast this stuff goes, man. Last homestand of the summer for the Osprey. Only 6 more chances to see them. So get on down there to the park and support them. Check them out.
Yeah, it'll be a fun evening not just tomorrow, but all week long, and especially these 3 games against Billings, which, Missoula 5 games back, the Great Falls Voyagers 7.5 games back. So really, Missoula the only team that's even in striking distance, frankly, of the Billings Mustangs as we get down here to the last couple weeks of the season. Coulter, the college football world is kicking off on Thursday in earnest. This is what I love this weekend, this Labor Day weekend of college football, because they get to dominate the entire football landscape, because truly the 4th preseason game is a complete and utter throwaway. I mean, no one would really watch it. And they are allowed, the college football, to do Thursday night games, which they don't really do during the NFL season because the NFL's got Thursday night. They do Friday night games, which they don't normally do for high schoolers, what they do on this first weekend. Of course, then the full slate on Saturday. And then they do Sunday night and Monday night football for college football on Sunday, and then, of course, again on Labor Day, which is great. And they are big-time matchups. On Sunday, Houston, Oklahoma, which – maybe not as big as it's been in past years, particularly with Houston, not the number 6 team in the nation, which they were a couple of years ago. But to watch Oklahoma play and to see, what are they going to come up with, this year, and Lincoln Riley in his 3rd year and yet another transfer quarterback, and how is that going to go? And then Monday night, Notre Dame at Louisville. All I know is we got, 5 straight games of football? I mean, I'm going to sell this camper, and I'm going to be living the life. You know what I mean? That's what I'm going to do this whole weekend. It's going to be great. UCLA, Cincinnati, give me all of that. Morgan State, Bowling Green, get some MAC going. Coulter, the MAC, buddy. Let's rock and roll.
You know me. I have a hard time with following any of the football stuff No, that's not true.
That's true.
I thoroughly enjoyed the Miami Florida game. And I also thought that this new college football 150, the multi-part series documentary, is great. It really puts into perspective the evolution of college football and why it's reached the point that it has. And I think it really just shows the way that we sort of glorify these kids, but also just the way that, in certain ways, as silly as it might sound, it really is an avenue to reach immortality. And that in itself is why I think we all love it.
Well, speaking of immortality, Utah, BYU, the Holy War, Saturday night. Let's go. Well, Thursday night. Get it right. See you later.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular